You know, I figure if I'm going to drink water during a run, I might as well get some energy out of it too. Hi, I'm Ralph and welcome to Today's Juice Runner. We all know it's important to fuel our long runs with carbohydrates. I generally shoot for 40 to 60 grams per hour. And there's really three ways you can do that. Maybe there's more than three, but I think there's three. The first would be real food like an energy bar or even a sandwich. I know a couple runners who make jelly sandwiches and carry them with them. The second way would be these ever popular gels. Now the thing about these thick hypertonic gels and food is you need to drink enough water to dissolve them in your stomach so your body can absorb it. Otherwise it's going to just sit there, do nothing, and probably give you an upset stomach. Now a third way is the way I'm using today, and I've been using ever since I started running, and that's using a hydration mix with carbohydrates in it. And that's why I've got in my water bottle today. The use of these mixes can greatly diminish, if not eliminate, the need for gels and food. So today I want to talk about three hydration powders that I've used. I've got a couple of them on my shelf right now, and that's Tailwind, Heed from Hammer Nutrition, and Skratch. That's Skratch with a K. Now all these are basically carbohydrate drinks. They have no fats or protein, but they also provide some electrolytes. Now I will put some links down below to all three of these products I'm going to talk about today, so you can research them or other products as you desire. Now Tailwind was a company started by a guy who got tired of getting sick. He would throw up wherever he ingested, whether it was food or gels, whatever. So he actually developed Tailwind to be easy on the stomach, easily absorbed. Heed has been around a long time. That was the first hydration drink I was exposed to at a trail marathon. They were serving water with Heed in it. And Heed one of their claims is no added sugars. We'll talk more about that later. And then Skratch again developed for sports people. Skratch says their mix is meant to replace the electrolytes lost in sweat. So as we talk later, we'll find they have some of the higher levels of some electrolytes than these other two. Now, as you go and compare these things, you need to keep in mind that typically the nutrition labels are done by scoop. For example, you go look at a scoop of Heed, it will tell you get 27 grams of carbohydrates, whereas a scoop of Skratch only has 20. So you might think, oh, Heed is better, I get more carbohydrates. Well, no, the scoop sizes are different. The Heed scoop size is about a third larger than Skratch. So you gotta be a little careful when you look at the nutrition labels. So for today's discussion, I've normalized the data. By that I mean, I tried to look at the nutrition for all these in a 10-gram sample. So we're comparing apples and apples. So I did the math on carbohydrates first, and no surprise, they all give about 9 grams of carbohydrates per 10-gram sample of powder. So that's not a surprise. There's no fats or protein in it. So it's 90% carbs. I assume the other 10% are the electrolytes or things they use to process it, or shelf life and things like that. So 90% of the powder is carbohydrates. That's the same in all three. So the way they give you the carbs is different though. Tailwind and Skratch both use sugar. They use sucrose, dextrose, maybe cane sugar. You can look at the ingredients to get more in depth on that. And of course, sugar is readily absorbed by the body. It's easy to dissolve and works very well. Heed, on the other hand, uses maltodextrin. Now, maltodextrin is a carbohydrate. It's kind of a tasteless carbohydrate. From what I understand, they get it from starchy products like potatoes or corn or rice. And so that's their main source of carbohydrates. Now, so because of that, because maltodextrin is tasteless, Heed will add artificial sweeteners into their powder to give it some sweetness. So if you have an issue with artificial sweeteners, suggest you dig into the label, understand what's in there, and decide for yourself. So those differences do make a difference in dissolvability. When I first got Tailwind, I would pour it in my water bladder, pour water in, and almost dissolve instantly. Skratch is nearly the same, maybe not quite as dissolved quite as well, but Heed is a different animal. I would pour Heed in my water bladder, pour water in, and I had all these white clumps of powder in my water bladder. Never could get them mixed up very well. I actually started mixing my Heed up separately in like a quart measuring container, and mix it up and try and get as best dissolved as I could, and then pour it in my water bladder. Now, in fairness to Heed, by the end of a run, it's all bouncing around and sloshing around. It's all pretty much dissolved and mixed up anyway, but it doesn't dissolve as easily as the other two products. So now let's talk about some of the electrolytes. So as I said earlier, Skratch tends to have, in general, the highest levels, not of all the electrolytes, but most of the electrolytes has the highest levels in the group. But keep in mind, these are not really high levels of, I'm speaking of magnesium, calcium, and potassium at the moment. They're not huge levels. I mean, even a scoop of them is maybe 2 to 5% of the RDA. So these are not huge levels. If you're interested and want more understanding, again, dig in the nutrition levels. But Skratch has the highest levels of magnesium and calcium. Tailwind, on the other hand, has the highest levels of potassium. So if you're low on potassium, some people run low on potassium if they're taking a diuretic for blood pressure, maybe Tailwind might be more of an interest to you. But again, these are not huge levels of these electrolytes, but they are there to help, when you're running and you're sweating, and replacing those as you lose them. Now, sodium, on the other hand, is where we again see some big differences between the three powders. Again, as I said, Skratch has the most. A scoop of Skratch has 380 milligrams of sodium, and in my 10-gram sample, that works out to about 173 milligrams of sodium in every 10 grams. Tailwind's a little less than that. A scoop of Tailwind, let me get the right number here, has 310, but a scoop of Tailwind is a little larger than a scoop of Skratch. So on my 10-gram sample, a scoop of Tailwind is 115. So that's 173 for Skratch, 115 for Tailwind. So it's got, maybe a third less sodium, but again, an adequate amount of sodium probably for most people. The big difference though is with Heat. I'm not going to call Heat a low sodium product, but a scoop of Heat only has 60 milligrams of sodium, and it's the largest scoop size. So that 10-gram sample of Heat only has 20 milligrams of sodium, and that's pretty low. So Heat is not going to replace a lot of the sodium. If you're a big sweater, you're running out in the hot, hot, humid days, it's not going to do as good a job replacing sodium as the other two. So I tend to use Heat in the wintertime. It's a great wintertime product for me when I don't want all that sodium. I know I'm not going to be running and sweating as much, when it's freezing temperatures outside. So I tend to use it more in the wintertime when I'm trying to control my sodium. But in the summertime, Tailwind or Skratch is my preferred one, just to replace all that sodium loss from sweating. So what about taste? Well, they all taste fine. I have no problems with taste of any of these. I would say Tailwind has the lightest taste, the lightest flavor, and Skratch is the heaviest. By heavy, I mean you taste more of the flavor. So if you got orange, you taste more orange in Skratch and you wouldn't Tailwind. He's somewhere in the middle. So what about cost? What do these things cost? Well, again, you gotta look at it either by scoop or by 10-gram sample. So if I look at it by scoop, Tailwind's the cheapest. A scoop of Tailwind is 78 cents, whereas the most expensive is Heat. A scoop of Heat is $1.10, but again, that's per scoop. If you look at it based on my 10-gram sample, again, Tailwind's is the cheapest at 29 cents, but the most expensive is Skratch at about 46 cents. So if you were to ask me, well, Ralph, do you have a recommendation? Well, I do. I think if I were going to just get one powder, I would get Tailwind. It's very affordable. It's the most inexpensive of all three of these. You get the same number of carbohydrates whether you use any of these powders. So Tailwind gives you adequate carbohydrates, easily absorbed, easily digested. You get a decent amount of electrolytes. It's good, just a good all-around powder. However, if you have special needs, if you run a lot in really hot, sweaty temperatures, you want more electrolytes, maybe you want Skratch, or if you don't like all the sugars, you rather get a non-sugar-based powder, you might want Heat. So you got to make a choice, but for my one recommendation would be Tailwind. It's a great powder. It's the first powder I ever used. I still use it. I really like it. It's a really good powder, but I like the other two also. I have Heat and Skratch on my shelf right now. I'm out of Tailwind. I need to order some more, but they're all great powders. Hey, thanks again for taking some time out of your day to watch this video. If you liked it, scroll down and hit that like icon. And while you're at it, if you're a newbie, I'd love to have you stick around, hit that subscribe icon also. But in any event, thanks for watching and happy running.